What's up everyone, and welcome to another Minecraft Bedrock Redstone tutorial. In this video, we're going to be looking at the Super Smelter. I'll be going over several variations of this, including the 13 furnace half size, the 26 furnace full size, and some attachments that you can add later on, such as a Shulker Loader or an automatic on-off feature. One furnace will smelt 6 items per minute, so at the 26 furnace version, it will be smelting about 2.5 stacks per minute. Now, one of the main features that I like to add to these super smelters is this top row of hoppers here. If you add this top row of hoppers, what it will do is the minecart with the hopper will pull from them. So, when you have really big loads and you try to load them into a super smelter like this, a lot of times you have to stop it just to refill the minecart. But with the hoppers going above the minecart will pull from them as it's smelting, so it takes, longer for it to empty itself. And for our fuel, we're going to use a minecart with a chest, mainly just in case you want to use lava buckets as your fuel source. Since they are non-stackable items, it's nice to have a really big reservoir just to make sure that all of your furnaces receive some fuel. And of course, this also works with like kelp blocks or any other fuel that you're trying to use. And for the full-size design, again, this one is 26 furnaces, and you will be able to access these furnaces in the middle here. The reason I left it like this is just so you can make sure that there are never any problems. Sometimes I'll build something above this, and some nonsense like redstone will fall into the hoppers, and then my furnaces will get stuck, because it can't smelt any redstone. So it's nice just to have access to the furnaces, just so you can make sure that they are turned on. But then for the rest of it, we have this top hopper section that again, the hopper minecart will pull from as it's going around. And this really only applies to really big loads. If you're smelting a small load, there won't be anything in these hoppers, but the minecart won't need to struggle to keep up with the demand. With really big loads, you have the problem with the minecart emptying out, while there's still items that need to be smelted. We'll also go over a simple Shulker Loader section where you can throw shulkers full of smeltable items and then lock the hopper so that you can pull the shulker boxes out once they are empty. You don't want your shulkers to be mixed in with all of your smeltable items and end up in your furnaces somewhere. And we'll also be going over how to fully automate this furnace so that it turns on once it has a certain amount of items in the reservoir and then turns off once it's smelted most of those items. Now, of course, both of these are totally optional. You can just build the basic design and it will still work as a super smelter. I just like to fully automate it if I'm attaching it to a farm. If I'm getting like gold swords or, food or something that I'm funneling directly into my furnace, I like it to turn on by itself just so that it doesn't get crazy full. And one last thing that I would like to mention before we start the build tutorial is that you should really chunk align this machine. Since it uses moving minecarts, if you don't chunk align it, minecarts can flat out despawn when they're crossing chunk borders. I've had, minecarts full of smeltable items just totally despawn on me because I didn't chunk align. Luckily, there's a really easy way to do this. Simply go to where you want to build it, and then type in the coordinates into a calculator, and then divide those coordinates by 16. So in this case, we're going to do 660 divided by 16, and we only care about the whole number. So we only care about 41. So then next, we're going to type in 41 times 16, and that will be the corner of the chunk. Then we're also going to subtract 1 from that number, and that will be another corner of a different chunk. So in this case, our chunk corners are at 656 and 655. So I'm going to place a block at 656 and at 655, just so that we know that this is a chunk border. One chunk is on one of these blocks and another chunk is on the other block. And now we just need to find the other corner. So we're going to take our last coordinate and type that in. If it's negative, just ignore that for now. But we're going to type in 713, divide that by 16, then we only care about the whole number. So we're going to take 44, multiply that by 16, so we end up with 704. So 704 is one of the corners. And now we need to subtract 1, and that's where the negative comes in. Remember, if you subtract 1 from a negative number, the number actually increases. So in this case, our chunk border is at negative 704 and negative 705. So I'm going to place a block at negative 704 and negative 705, and then we're going to align these blocks together so that they're in a little cluster like so. And this is the chunk corner of 4 different chunks. And since chunks are 16 by 16, we just need to count out 15 more blocks from one of these corners to find where our chunk is. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. and then go over by 15 more blocks so that you end up with a 16 by 16 square, and this is where your chunk is. And thankfully, in Bedrock, since chunk borders are always at multiples of 16, you can always easily find what chunk you're in just by using the calculator on your phone. But whether or not you decided to chunk align this, we're going to start off by placing a double chest. Now this is going to be the output of your furnace, so you could always expand this later on if you need to. You could even expand it into an item sorter, or really anything that you would like to do. But then we're going to place 13 hoppers going into the back of that chest, and if you chunk aligned, it should come 1 block away from the chunk border like so. Then we're going to place furnaces on top of all of these hoppers, and if you only plan on building the half design rather than the full 26 furnace design, you just have to build 1 row. But if you want to build the full design, we're going to place a hopper going into the side of that chest, and then 13 more hoppers going back, like so. So we have our second row of furnaces. So of course we're going to place furnaces on top of these hoppers, and again, skip this step if you only want to build half of the machine. I will talk specifically about the half-size design at the end of this tutorial before I go into the Shulker Loader and the automated process. But the half-size design is basically the same, so you can still follow along and just work on one of these sides. But we need to place hoppers going into the back and into the top of all of the furnaces. Smeltable items will go in the top hoppers and fuel will go in the side hoppers. But now we need to place solid blocks at the end of the hopper rows, 1 on the far sides and then 2 on the middle rows, like so. Now we're going to go to the back and we're going to basically connect the hoppers together with these solid blocks. So we have a row on the back and then a single one in the middle, like so. And this is where our rail system is going to go. So place a powered rail at the very end next to a regular rail, and then just continue regular rails all the way down, and then place powered rails in the center, like at the very end. Then place regular rails all the way down, but place 2 powered rails at the very end, like so. And now we're going to place a solid block above one of the powered rails, and then just put a lever on it and turn it on, which should power the rails. Then same way on the back, we're going to place a block above this powered rail. Then we're going to place a lever on the side of this block, just so it's not in a different chunk. Now to build the center rail section. So start off by placing a temporary powered rail next to a normal powered rail. The reason we need the temporary rail is just so that the rail lines don't connect to each other. But then break out the temporary rail and replace it with a solid block, like so. And now we're going to place rails going all the way down, and then 1 powered rail in the middle here, which should turn on from that lever. And then, regular rails all the way down until we get to the very end. Be sure to place your temporary powered rail first, so that the rails don't connect to each other. And then break out your temporary rail, and then replace it with a solid block. And so you should end up with this right here. And we need solid blocks on the side of the other powered rails, just so that the minecart doesn't fly out of the system. And so you should have 4 powered rails on the left side, and 2 unpowered rails on the right side. So on the unpowered rails, we're going to, on the bottom one, we're going to place a hopper going down into that rail, like so, and then a hopper going into the side of that rail. It might be a little awkward, but you have to aim at the rail itself. But then we're going to place a third hopper going down into the bottom hopper, and then a chest on top of this. So that is where your fuel is going to go. Next up, we're going to place a hopper going down toward the other unpowered rail, like so. Next up, we're going to place 8 hoppers going into this front hopper above the rail line. Then we're going to turn and place 2 hoppers going into that row, and then turn and place hoppers going into those hoppers all the way down until the front, where we're going to turn one last time and place a hopper going into that one. Now we're going to place our chest on top of the corner where the hopper is going down into where the minecart is going to be. This way, items from the chest will get loaded directly into the minecart and also into the hoppers. And now we're going to place our minecart with chest on the unpowered rail on the outside, and our minecart with hopper on the unpowered rail on the inside, like so. And now the only thing left to do is place a lever on the side of this block right here, with 2 redstone dust on the top of these blocks next to the minecarts, so that you can send them some power to get them going. And now we are done with the basic design. Now I will say that depending on how you decorate, or, just depending on how much lag there is, or maybe like the physics or something changes, this minecart on the top kind of struggles. So you could always add a powered rail, somewhere, past the hoppers, and then just, place a block over the bottom one, add a lever to it, to power it, And now, if your minecart ever gets stuck or something like that, you can always just add this. But basically with this farm, you want the minecarts to move as slow as they possibly can. So if it's working without this powered rail, don't worry about it. But if you notice it getting stuck or something, or you're just worried about it, you can just add a powered rail. It's totally fine. Now, if you built the half design, there are a couple differences. For one, the rail system doesn't curve back around on itself, and then also this top line of hoppers just goes all the way across. And your input chest will be on the other side. And just in case this is confusing, the other design curves back around like this. So basically you just skip out on this other, curvy line of hoppers and just extend the hoppers all the way across and then place your input chest on top of the far end. And now let's talk about building the shulker loading section. So I like to use obsidian just because it's hard to break. Sometimes when you're going to break your shulkers, you end up breaking the block behind the shulker. So I like to use obsidian. So place a line of obsidian right here next to the hoppers, then place a lever at the very end above the center hopper, and I also like to place a lamp so that I know if that lever is turned on or not. And that's it. Now you can just place shulkers on this obsidian above the hoppers, and they will start draining into the hopper line. And once your shulkers are totally empty and you're ready to get them back, be sure to turn on that lever before you break the shulkers. Turning on that lever will lock this hopper right here, so all the items will get stuck inside of this hopper. So you're going to want to run the smelter so that there are no items in this line, before you break your shulker boxes. That way, the shulkers end up in this hopper right here so that you can pull them out of the hopper so that the shulkers don't end up in your system. Also, make sure that the farm is not running when you go to break your shulkers, or they might get pulled in by the minecart and put into the system anyway. I also recommend building a little ledge up here so that it's easy for you to walk up and place the shulker boxes. But if you plan on adding the automated feature that will have the furnace turn on by itself, you need to go up by one more block. So just place slabs diagonally up from that hopper line to work as your platform. So then you can just add a little staircase in the front so that you can easily just walk up, drop off your shulkers, and then even from here, you can even easily access the other chests. You can easily dump in fuel or easily dump in your items to be smelted. You can even add a lever right here on the side of this block to power that redstone to activate the machine. This lever will of course replace this lever down here. Basically, you can place a lever anywhere that powers those two redstone dust. But now if you want to fully automate the super smelter where it turns on by itself, we're going to come around to this side, and on this second hopper right here, we're going to place a block diagonally down from it so that we can place a comparator that's looking at that second hopper. Now this is going to make the machine turn off whenever that hopper is empty. But we're going to place a solid block coming out of that comparator with a redstone torch on the side of that block. Then we're going to place a piston next to that redstone torch, holding a block of redstone. Now we need to place some temporary blocks so that we can place another piston that is 2 blocks away from the first piston. So it should be like this, where there's 2 blocks in between the 2 pistons. And now we're going to place some temporary blocks so that we can place a solid block that is directly under where the redstone block is right now. So diagonally down from that first piston. Now don't be confused, if your piston is activated, the only reason that mine is not activated is because there is stuff in the hopper that the comparator is looking at. So yours might look like this. It really doesn't matter right now if that piston is activated or not. Basically, when there's items inside of this hopper, it will turn off that piston. But you just need a block right here. So we need another block diagonally down from the blocks that have the redstone dust on them, and then we're going to curve these blocks around this hopper over to the block that you placed underneath the piston. Then we're going to place redstone dust on top of all of these blocks, and this is what you should end up with. So, that first comparator is what turns the machine off automatically. Now we need to turn the machine on automatically. So we're going to place solid blocks going from the back of that piston 2 blocks away from the end of the hopper line that curves around. And now technically we just need to pick where we want this to activate. So let's just say we wanted it to activate when this line is totally full and there's items in this hopper right here. If that's what we wanted, we could place a comparator coming out of that hopper, and then just place redstone dust going over to the piston. So this would turn on when the machine is about at half capacity. When there's items backing up in that hopper right there, it would turn on. So we honestly probably don't want this. We have this whole other side of hoppers that, maybe we want to fill all of these up with items before the machine turns itself on. So I would actually recommend placing the comparator over here on one of these front 2 hoppers. In fact, I would actually place it right here on top of the block with the lever on it. So we actually need to switch the lever to the other side, like so. And then if you've already built the floor right here, we need to break out a couple blocks just so that we can place a comparator that's looking at this second hopper, like so. Now we need to place a block coming out of that comparator, and then just curve this all the way back around, and then bring the other line of blocks on this side all the way over so that it meets up, like so. And now we just need to run redstone dust basically on top of all these blocks. But I would recommend placing 3 redstone dust right here, and then a repeater, so that that hopper only needs to have a certain amount of items in it before it turns it on. Then we're going to run redstone dust over here and place another repeater to refresh the signal because it's too far away, and that's it. Now this machine will automatically turn on once all of the hoppers have backed up all the way to this hopper. So once this hopper starts getting a bunch of items in it, the machine will automatically turn itself on, and then it will automatically turn itself off once all of the hoppers are drained. Now when it comes to hiding your redstone, it might be a little awkward, so let me just give you a few suggestions. Because this redstone is in the way, I would recommend just placing solid blocks at the end of these hoppers right here. Just kind of cap it off right here and build like a little walls section. That way it just looks nicer. You have your shulker loading section that just looks like a room with hoppers in the floor. So you can just come in, throw your shulkers down, and you don't have to look at all of the crazy looking redstone. And you can still access that lever to lock the hopper to pull your shulker boxes out. But now let me demonstrate kind of how this works and give you a couple of more suggestions. So basically, once the hopper that this comparator is looking at starts backing up, once all the other hoppers are full and items start getting stuck in it, the signal strength coming out of the comparator will increase. Once it reaches a level of 3, it will activate that repeater, which will then activate the piston on the other side, which will push the redstone block, which will then activate the machine. Now when you use the lever to turn it on and off, when you turn off the lever, the machine stops. But with the automated process, you can't turn it off once it begins. But you can place a button on the leftmost piston, and then once this hopper that the comparator is looking at is no longer full, all the other hoppers can still have stuff in it, but once that comparator has turned off, you will be able to press that button on the leftmost piston to turn off the automated sequence, so that the machine just turns off. So if you just want it to stop running, or if you want it to pause so that, the fuel can refill itself or something like that, you can just place a button on that leftmost piston and then press it to pause the automated sequence. And then to get it going again, you can just place a button on the rightmost piston and press it, and that will activate the automated smelting. So it will just keep smelting until it's completely empty. And then of course, while it's smelting, using the automated process, the lever won't do anything. Turning on or off the lever won't affect anything as long as the automated process is active. Now once the machine is active, this minecart with hopper will constantly pull items from the hopper line above it, which helps keep everything evenly distributed, where all of the furnaces are getting roughly the same amount of items. If you built this without that upper line of hoppers, then the minecart would distribute, 5 stacks evenly, and then run out and not be able to fill itself fast enough to evenly distribute them. So you would end up with bunches of items in the first few furnaces and not very many items in the last few furnaces. Which isn't really ideal. You want it to be as evenly distributed as possible to help with speed and fuel distribution and all of that stuff. And so using this hopper line really helps. By the time this hopper line starts to get empty and the minecart also starts to get empty, there are tons of items in every single furnace. So it's pretty evenly distributed. Now, once the hopper line kind of runs out and there's only like 2 or 3 hoppers left, also the minecart with hopper will start to run low. Now, if you just pause the machine, it will fill back up the hopper really, really quickly. You could pause the machine for just like 10 seconds to fill back up the minecart if you're worried about evenly distributing it. Now for the fuel, the minecart with chest will run out. It's basically only getting 2 items per go around, because it's a minecart with chest and not a minecart with hopper. So you might want to pause it occasionally just to refuel itself. So I would recommend before you even start running this machine, load as much fuel as you possibly can and then turn it on. just to distribute all of that fuel throughout the system so that you won't really need to get more fuel even for big loads. So just as an example, especially if you're using lava buckets as your fuel source, just go over to your minecart with chest before you even start to smelt things, and just fill it up with your lava buckets or your dried kelp or whatever fuel you're using. Just remember, don't use your coal to smelt items. I have a video talking about why you don't want to use your coal, but mainly you should just save your coal for other things such as torches. Lava buckets and kelp are totally farmable, whereas coal, you actually have to go collect that stuff. So save yourself the hassle and save all your coal for torches to expand the safety of your world. Now personally, I use lava buckets as my fuel source, and if you do too, I would recommend expanding your fuel storage so that you can hold more lava buckets. Since lava buckets are non-stackable, they tend to, stack up. So if you just add another double chest with a hopper in your fuel compartment, you can fill them both totally up with lava buckets. That way you get, maximum lava in every single fuel hopper for every single furnace. And then I want to talk about one last thing, and that is your storage. Now, if you just have a single double chest, this is going to fill up crazy quickly. So, rather than having to truck your items back and forth constantly to make sure that your output is empty, you can always expand this. You can break out these chests and add chests on the side, and then add hoppers underneath these chests that go down to your actual chests. And then of course you could always add like an item sorter down here to sort out all your items, or really any sort of storage system that you can come up with. Storage systems are very diverse, so however you like to handle your storage systems, you can totally do that here. I would definitely recommend expanding it in some way, shape, form, or fashion though. Now, I also will say that if you do it just like I did it here, you won't be able to open these topmost chests, which technically isn't a problem since they drain into the bottom one. But just in case you want to tweak this design so that you can open up those chests, you can always replace this solid block with glass or with slabs or with upside down stairs. Any of those will totally work. You'll just have to remember to replace the rails and replace the minecart that falls through, and it will all be good. Now, if your rails connect to each other, you will have to place some temporary rails coming out of the front so that you can place them again correctly. I also have a video guide to item sorters if you would like to check that out and build one for your furnace. A lot of times I will build an item sorter for my furnace since we generally have the same items going through our furnaces over and over. Tons of netherrack, maybe some cobblestone, or even the occasional cracked brick variants. But before we end this video, be sure to leave me a comment and tell me what you did or didn't like, or if you don't know what to say, just tell me hi. Comments are super duper important for YouTube videos, so any support that you can give me, I would highly appreciate. It really makes me happy. And if you're one of my subscribers coming back to watch yet another Minecraft video, thank you so much. It is because of your support that I can keep making these, and every day we are getting closer and closer to monetization. I am super duper excited for that, mainly because it will allow me to open up more. I'll be able to host realms or do giveaways, or just, anything that I can think of to grow a community and help people out. So again, thank you for being here. I really appreciate you watching. If you like this video, don't forget to like, favorite, share, and subscribe. It really helps me out. You can also join my Minecraft Discord. The link is in the video description. From there, you can share pictures of your builds, talk to me about Redstone, find players to play with, or anything Minecraft related that you would like to do. This video was actually requested by a member in my Discord, so a big shout out to Alf. I really appreciate you talking to me there, joining the Discord and requesting a video. I hope this is what you wanted, and I hope that I could help out in some way. It always makes me happy to help people out. And speaking of helping out, if you have any questions or requests, simply talk to me down in the comments and I will do my best to assist you. But that's all we got for this video, so until next time, I've been your host, OmLedu, hopefully teaching you a redstone trick or two, and reminding you, as always, don't forget to have fun. Bye bye!